All right. I think we are live right now. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. This is Councilwoman Mai Vang coming to you from our Heart and Hustle studio. It's really great to be joined by my colleagues at City Hall and also Trustee Ray Vanderwerf. I'm really super excited about this month's Heart and Hustle live studio chat because it's something that I'm really excited and passionate about. And it's also about, when we think about city government, back to basic, what are the basic things that the city of Sacramento provides? So what I want to share is that one, it is a Friday evening, right? A Friday afternoon. And so I want to say thank you to all of you for tuning in. If you're watching live on Facebook right now or on Twitter or our YouTube feed, I want to say thank you for joining us. And if you're just watching the rerun of this, well, welcome anyways. Just really excited that you're all tuning in. So what I wanted to share, one reason why I really wanted to have this live chat was because I've had a lot of conversation with our young people and residents in the neighborhood. And oftentimes folks don't know where our water comes from. And so I thought it'd be really fun just to have a conversation about exactly about water, right? Have you ever wondered where our water comes from? How does our water actually flow? We get questions around, is our water safe to drink? And how do we ensure that we actually even have enough water supply for our residents, our neighborhoods, and most importantly, planet Earth, right? So again, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon as we take it back to basics about city government. Something I also want to remind you all is that obviously we are also in summer right now. And as the temperatures climb, it's also a time that we see more water usage. Currently, I serve on the city's water committee. And one of my goals is really to ensure that we educate our neighbors and each other about our water system and really work with our city. And all of you who's watching this, really, what are the ways that we could be a good steward of our water supply? And so that's the reason why I'm having this live chat today, and really want to say thank you to our esteemed panelists for joining me today. And we'll go ahead and get started. So before I jump into some questions, I definitely want an opportunity for our panelists to introduce themselves. And one question I had for each of you is, how did you end up in the field of water? How did you get here today? So with that, I will start with Trustee Ray Vanderwerf.
Thanks, Mai. I serve as a trustee on a flood control board, but my background is actually I have a master's in water resource management. I've worked in drinking water and other parts of water just throughout my career. And I think I ended up there because growing up in the Sacramento area, water's always been important. It's always been something we talk about. It's something we've always been concerned about. And I wanted to be able to protect people and public health. And I think water was kind of just my automatic way into that. And I also love chemistry and kind of am a little bit of a junkie for chemistry. And I think anyone who works in the water industry will know that chemistry is kind of a big part of what we do and a big part of how you understand and can look at water. So it's kind of what drove me there, but mostly was caring about public health. And it's something we all can relate to, and everyone needs water. So it's kind of was something easy to kind of want to take care of.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ray. Yeah, because water is a universal basic need, right? And thank you so much for sharing your background as well. Roshni?
Hi, everyone. So I've had a lot of twists and turns before I ended up in the water world. I was an architect, designing buildings. Definitely water was a component in that. But for me, it was the expansion into sustainability and climate change. I got more and more involved in those discussions. So as you can see, I'm a sustainability manager with the Department of Utilities, and water became the ultimate focus for me. And I'm enjoying the work and the water conservation programs that we run. I'm happy to get into those later on, but that's how I got into the world of water. Absolutely an essential natural resource, a finite natural resource that we need to protect and conserve.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roshni. And Roshni, how long have you worked for the city of Sacramento?
Just over 4 years now.
Awesome. Well, we're really grateful to have you, and I know you're doing incredible work. So just thank you so much for making time to be here today in the Heart and Hustle studio to share just your knowledge and wisdom of all the work that you've done. And then the last panelist, but not least, Bill.
Thanks, Mai. Bill Busaith. I'm the director of the Department of Utilities, and I'm a civil engineer by trade. I graduated about 30 years ago and started with Caltrans. As you know, there's a lot of different directions you can go as a civil engineer. And I started out in highway and bridge design. Luckily, about 25 years ago, I was lucky enough to get a job with the Department of Utilities in the city of Sacramento. And our focus is all things water, drainage, wastewater, and drinking water. And so my 25 years at the city of Sacramento have been, the Department of Utilities has been very rewarding. And I'm grateful to be in a position right now where I can influence water policy and water supply and water quality in the city of Sacramento, because they're so important right now more than ever, and will continue to get more and more important.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bill. And I've been in office for about 7 months now, and it's just been so just such an honor working with you, and I'm learning so much every day from you. And I just want to publicly say thank you just for your leadership and your years at the city as well. So with that, we're going to jump right in. So as we know, California is currently facing a historical drought that impacts every single part of our community and our city operations. Before we get into actually how we're preparing for future droughts, how to save water today, or how we could be more water smart or efficient, I think it's really important for us to just go back to the basics. If I go to my kitchen sink right now and fill a glass, or here is my drinking bottle with clean, drinkable, fresh water, how does that get from our rivers and our reservoir to my house? How does the water actually get to my sink when I turn it on? Who wants to take that one?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
So this is it's a fact of life here that we can turn on a faucet and get water. And it's something that we kind of take for granted a little bit. In reality, the process is quite extensive. And I'll just walk through it real quick. We have 2 treatment plants in the city of Sacramento, one on the Sacramento River and one on the American River. Those treatment plants each have an intake that draws water out of the river, pumps it into our treatment facilities, where it goes through a multi-hour and even actually multi-day process, where it goes through settling processes and also chlorination or disinfectant processes, more settling processes, chlorination again that kills all bacteria, especially harmful bacteria in the water. And then finally, a filtration process where very, very, very fine particles are removed from the water. It then is put into our distribution system, which is over 1,700 miles of pipes that takes the water out into the city of Sacramento, throughout the city of Sacramento, and delivers it to each home and business throughout the city of Sacramento. Along with this process, as Ray mentioned, there's a lot of treatment and a lot of chemistry that goes on. Our water is treated dozens of times throughout the process of treatment, or it's tested dozens of times throughout the water treatment process. And then after it gets out into the system, we have 50 or 60 different locations throughout the system where we are out several times a week taking samples. These samples are tested to make sure that the water, again, through the treatment process, and then once it gets into the system, remains pure and healthy and meeting all of our federal and state water quality standards. So it's a great extensive process, but luckily we have a great system in place in the city of Sacramento, and one that obviously I feel very strongly about, making sure it stays robust and resilient.
Thanks, Bill. So what you're saying to me is that basically when I turn on my faucet, that water came from the Sac River and the American River. Is that correct?
That's correct. Or the other source that we have, about 20% of our water comes from groundwater.
What's that? What is groundwater?
Groundwater is water that comes from the ground.
Well, how do we get that water?
We have groundwater wells that pump that water out, from hundreds of feet deep. It's brought up. It is also chlorinated and treated to make sure that it's clean and pure. Also, all of our water is fluoridated. And then that same water, that same groundwater is put out into the distribution system along with the water that comes from our rivers. In the city, we supply about 20% or so of our total water comes from groundwater. I'll talk a little bit more about groundwater later on.
That's awesome.
When you talk about system supply, water supply and resiliency.
No, that sounds great. I think it's good to know because I'm just thinking, where does our water come from? So what I'm hearing is that it comes from the Sac River, the American River, which is about 80%, and then 20% of it comes from the groundwater.
That's correct.
So you're watching that and you're wondering, where does our water come from? Our rivers and ground. So we got to do everything we can and make sure that our rivers are doing well, right? So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Bill, for that. All right. So the next question, right? So I mentioned earlier regarding really that we're facing a historical drought, and California is definitely no stranger to droughts. According to the State of Department of Water Resources, we're facing a water shortage of historic proportions that has been exacerbated by weather changes resulting from climate change. Just this month, Governor Newsom added additional emergency measures to save water, and he asked every Californian to save 15% of their average water usage. So my first question is, how are our water systems conserving water on a large scale, and how are we preventing waste and ensuring smart usage? And this question can go to Trustee Ray and Roshni. So whoever wants to take it first. Roshni,
Ray?
you want to take it?
Okay, I'll take a stab at this one. So the city has. I just want to go back to the question, Councilmember Wang, and say yes, it is true that climate change is impacting our the drought conditions, right? I think 2016-18, we didn't expect the drought to hit us so fast and so quickly around this time. This time, what happened is a little bit of background on the conditions that happened on the drought is that until January to April, we had plenty of snow. We saw plenty of snow, but suddenly it disappeared into the soil. The dry conditions exacerbated. It didn't materialize in our reservoirs. And that's where this time the drought was pretty fast moving, more than what any of the local agencies expected. On a large scale, the city, I think, have shown amazing leadership in moving ahead with implementing water conservation measures. One thing is, at a large scale, city put in millions of dollars in investment in smart meters. The smart meter installation allows the customers to review their water use on an hourly basis. So this is data at your hands, in front of you on your computers, to review the data on an hourly basis. And if there is a leak, you can set leak alerts so that you don't waste any water. At the same time, after the last drought, city also realized that asking customers to change their behavior, and especially in a situation when drought could be more common, changing their behavior pretty often is very hard thing to do. So we decided that it is better for the city to stick on to the 2-day per week watering schedule. And the reason behind this is 60% of our water use on a typical household goes into sprinkler system. That's, your treated water going into watering your plants and trees. So the 2-day per watering schedule has helped cities stay below our 2013 water use by up to 25%. That's a huge drop from our pre-drought numbers. So these two pieces help us a lot. And then I am a little bit biased because I oversee the water conservation program, but we have an award water conservation program in the city of Sacramento. We provide rebates assistance services. We go into customers' house, help them understand where their water use is, how they can reduce it, and provide plumbing, shower heads and aerators and those kind of fixtures to help customers. And so there are a lot of these assistance services, rebates, and education and outreach that we do on a yearly, annual, multi-year basis that we have put in place to make water conservation a way of life. So these are some of the large scale initiatives that I wanted to highlight.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Trustee Ray, did you want to add anything to that at all? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think there's also a lot of things like most of us know, especially if you've grown up in California, we've always been taught like, don't leave the water running. Just doing little things also can add up. Like I know people maybe don't feel like it, but if you're taking a little bit shorter showers or turning off the water while you're brushing your teeth, like we all brush our teeth, multiple times a day, that starts to add up. And just being smart about how you're using your water. The city has a lot of really great programs that help you conserve water, but you also just being smart about when you're planning and how you're using it. Making sure you actually run a full load of dishes in your dishwasher or laundry versus running 6 loads a bunch just because it made it a little bit easier. And I think just finding little ways to make your daily life revolve around making sure you're fully using your water, I think is something that's really easy. A lot of us don't think about. And because we do kind of have that nice, like turn on the tap and it's always there. But
yeah,
if we don't treat it like it might not always be there someday, many generations or even just, down the future, maybe a generation or so, that might not be the case. So
yeah. No, I think that's really great. I think some of those just basic things are really good, are ways that we could be a good steward of water. So I really appreciate it. And Roshni, the programs that you mentioned, we'll make sure as well to have Team Heart and Hustle link the website and the information so that if you would like access to the rebates, right, we have lots of incredible programs. Definitely want to encourage all of you watching to access our rebate program. So thank you so much. So another question I have for the panel, and let me see if this is a fair question to ask, but is it fair to ask everyday people and our neighbors to take shorter showers? I was going to talk about showering because Trustee Ray just mentioned that as well. Is it fair to ask everyday people to take shorter showers in order to conserve water? When recently, according to a study from UC Davis, it says that agriculture actually uses 40% of our California's water, while residents really only use 10%. So my question to you is, is it fair to ask us to take shorter showers? So who wants to take that question?
I'll take a quick stab at that.
Okay.
And the answer is short, and it's along the lines of what Rajni was talking about, and that is we in the city of Sacramento are working towards making efficient and effective water use a way of life. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is that nobody should be using more water than they need to. Mm-hmm. I think that the public can rest assured that farmers and growers are working just as hard to conserve water as we are. Mm-hmm. They pay for the water, and as Ray mentioned, it's not always there. This year they're not receiving all of their water this year. The agriculture interests are not receiving all their water, and so they're very focused on reducing, the amount of water that they use. And we need to also, if we don't need to take more than 5 minutes for a shower.
Is that 5 minutes?
It's harsh, but
is that usually how long your showers are? 5 minutes?
We just need to be as effective and efficient with our water. It's one of our, it could arguably be termed our most valuable resource. Yeah. And we need to use it as efficiently, as effectively as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a question. So I have a dishwasher, and I know some folks have dishwasher. Would you recommend us washing the dishes in the dishwasher or just washing the dishes in the sink?
So I think it just depends. If it's one person, the key about dishwashers is to make sure they're very efficient if it's a full load. And if it's not a full load, if you've just got a couple of dishes in there, then it's way better to wash them in the sink. But if you can arrange to have a full dishwasher, then it's an efficient way to wash the dishes.
Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate that. I think that's actually really good advice, which goes to the next question that I have is, what are some key strategies for individuals to make a difference in their own household, right? I know that Governor Newsom, has asked every single Californian to save at least 50% of their average water usage. So how can we cut back by even just 15%, right? What are some strategies? And so that's the reason why I asked the question, because I have a sink full of dishes that I have not washed because it's been super busy. And actually don't really use the dishwasher. I use it actually for Hmong families. We wash the dishes and we put it in the dishwasher. So, but it's good to know that, you have a lot of dishes. If you really want to save water, then you put it in the dishwasher. But if it's not that many dishes, then wash it in the sink. But yeah, what are some strategies?
I can take a stab at that. So if you don't have a lawn or a front yard or outdoor water using, some of the measures that we just mentioned, looking at your shower time, reducing it by 1 minute, running your clothes washer and dishwasher full loads are all water saving measures. It makes sense. But if you have a lawn, like I said, 60% of your water use goes on your lawn during the night time when your sprinklers come on. You don't even know if your sprinklers are running most of the time, if they are running efficiently or if they are actually watering the driveway. So checking your sprinkler system to make sure that they are actually watering the sprinklers is one of the key measure, right? And see, just like reducing your one shower for a minute, think about your sprinklers. That's like 2,000 some gallons going out on your lawn. So reducing your runtime on the lawn is a better strategy, and it will save more than 10% if we focus on that. And check your soil moisture, right? So most of the time, what we see is plants die because of overwatering. Lawns don't do good with overwatering. You want to water. Cycle and soak is a remedy. You have 2 days of watering. Cycle and soak them deep for those 2 days. Run as many times as you want, but run them deep. Then you don't need to water the rest of the days, and also avoid runoff. The city doesn't allow water runoff into the gutters. We don't want to waste water, again, a precious resource. These measures will help us. Just by checking the moisture before turning on your sprinklers, you can save 80 gallons of water per day. And check for leaks. So typical leaks, if you sign up on my water on the city's website to check your water use, and if you set a leak alert, you can quickly jump on that. Usually leaks can run from 30 to 50 gallons of water per day. You can lose that. So that's another easy measure for you to do. And the most simplest thing is water early in the morning. Water very, very much in the early, and that itself saves you 50 gallons of water, because when you water during the daytime, especially during hot Sacramento summer days, it evaporates before it can get to where it needs to. So these are the simplest measures that we can do to save water.
Thanks, Roshni. It does remind me of the conversation I had with my mom. She always tells me to wake up super early and to either water early in the morning or at nighttime. And she's like, never do it during the day because you're absolutely right. If you're watering during the day when it's hot, it might not even make it to where it needs to go, right? I think those are really great tips. Trustee Ray, Bill, do you have other strategies?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's funny because it was mentioned earlier, even by Roshni, that making sure you have efficient showers and aerators on your sink, because those will reduce how much water you need to do things. I think those are really important. And if you can, looking into the programs that help you get more efficient dishwashers and more efficient washers, and all of those things can help with the little bits. I know for me, even personally, I just installed a drip system, and so all my plants are on that, and I don't have to even really worry about the evaporation because it's underneath a bunch of wood chips underneath weed tarp, and so the evaporation rate is even lower. The city also has rain barrel programs, and there's other things that for you to collect the water. So we were talking about reducing runoff. That's a great way for you to not have runoff during rain, and then I can use that to water some of the plants that we have. And I think that those are all really good ways that you can reduce your water need as well as your water waste. I think oftentimes it's also reducing what you need to take as well as not just what you used.
That's really a great point, Ray.
And I'll just add one thing, Maya, or a couple of things. And Rajni mentioned our rebate programs. Toilets are a big use of water, and we have a program where people can replace old toilets with new ones and get a rebate that pays, for the toilet. We have our River Friendly Landscape program that encourages people to reduce the amount of turf that they have and replace it with river friendly or drought tolerant plants. And we pay so much per square foot, of turf removed. So there's a lot of incentive programs that can help people with rebates that can help reduce the amount of water that they use.
Thanks, Bill. I was just gonna, and Roshni already mentioned that, because I keep thinking about the neighborhoods that I represent. Oftentimes they might not be able to get a new toilet, or it may cost money, right? Sometimes some folks that it costs money to be efficient, right? And so what we're trying to do here is also to let you know that we have programs for our neighbors and our families, and rebate programs as well, to really help with the costs. And we'll make sure, I see that's up there right now, SAC residential rebates. We have that link up there. So we'll make sure to put it also in the chat as well. So thank you so much. Really awesome stuff. Lots of things that we could be doing to really conserve water. This is great. So now that we've talked about how our water system works, right, that it comes from the Sac River, American River, and 20% of it coming from the ground. I really want to start talking about, let's look into the future, right? Greater Sacramento is growing really fast, and we need to make sure that we're preparing for our needs in 50 or even 100 years from now. So the question that I have is, how are we expanding and improving our water system to make sure that Sacramento's faucet never runs dry? And that we're doing our very best to really to protect the water supplies that we do have.
Okay, I'll start with that, Mai, because we are doing a lot. It's something that is always on our mind. First, every 5 years we have to update and revise what we call our urban water master plan. Mm-hmm. And this is something that we we turn into the state, but it basically verifies that we know how much water we're going to need in the future, and that we have a plan to provide it. It also is a time for us to report on how well we're doing with our water conservation. And just as an aside, I want to let your constituents know that on the whole, the city of Sacramento is doing very well with our water usage. Just as an example, 20 years ago, we were using about an average of 280 gallons per person per day in the city of Sacramento.
Wow. Right
now, we're at about 170, gallons per person per day. And so we've done a good job. We can do better, and I believe that we will do better. But on the whole, the residents, have done a good job and are doing a good job at efficient water use. And that's one of the strategies to make sure that we have enough water. Mm-hmm. Just like electric conservation reduces the amount of electricity that we need to produce, water conservation reduces the amount of water that we be able to produce. And so conservation has one of the benefits of conservation is it pushes out further into the future improvements that we need to make in order to make sure that we have enough water treatment capacity. So conservation is huge, in that regard. But we're also planning right now to, for instance, to increase. Right now we estimate that by 2035 or so, we're going to need additional treatment capacity. And so we're planning right now to make sure that we have, we're planning improvements to the Sacramento River Treatment Plant so that we have additional treatment capacity by 2035. We are, just a second. Could you please? Okay, sorry about that.
No worries, Bill.
So we are planning on, increasing our treatment capacity. We're also planning on making sure that our groundwater system, a lot of our wells are old. and need replacing or improving. We are working on that right now on replacing old groundwater wells and installing new groundwater wells. We have a project called the Water Plus project that we're probably over the next 15 or 20 years, we're going to be spending close to $1 billion on improvements to the distribution system, on increasing our treatment capacity, on improving our treatment process, including how we use chlorine and including ozone in the treatment process. So we have a lot of things in the works. We're planning very, very, very carefully to make sure that we never get to a point where we don't have enough water.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. I have a quick question. How old is our water system when you talk about treatment facility?
We have so we just finished a rehab project, at our SAC plant, where we spent about $150 million to update and upgrade. Some of that plant was built in 1924. In fact, the original parts of that plant, and some of that was still in operation.
Wow.
We have pipes in the city that are well over 100 years old. Probably up to 10, maybe even 15% of our pipes.
Wow.
And so, yes, because the city of Sacramento, was established in 1850. Yes, some of our facilities are very old, and we're working diligently to try, to make sure that we're replacing old pipes when they get old before they fail.
Yeah.
One of the unfortunate parts of that is that oftentimes we have to ask our constituents for rate adjustments, so that we make sure that we're spending enough money on our infrastructure so that it stays resilient and so that it stays sound.
Yeah, no, Bill, I really appreciate that because, serving on the water committee, I have learned so much. And, if we don't invest in our infrastructure right now, right, how the water gets to my faucet, what's going to end up happening? It's going to cost us more as a city in the long run. And so it's so important. It's from a public health perspective, right? It's like the preventative stuff. What are we doing right now to prevent anything horrible from happening, from our system collapsing, right? So really appreciate your diligence and sharing that we need to really make that investment in our infrastructure so that we could provide water, safe and clean water for our residents and our families. So really, really appreciate that. Trustee Ray and Roshni, any other thoughts? I know Bill kind of summed it up, but what are your thoughts about the future of water and where we should be going?
Yeah, I can add to some of the initiatives, other additional initiatives that the city is taking. When we look at climate change, and we know we cannot look at what happened in the history to plan for climate change. Things are ramping up, things are changing at an aggressive pace. So looking at the impacts of climate change is an initiative that the department is taking on. We have partnered with our local agencies. And when I talk about climate change and drought, right, they don't stop at our borders. They are a regional response. We need to act on it regionally. So the city has been a great partner. We work with Regional Water Authority and other local agencies to provide a lot of, we are doing a lot of planning and thinking about resiliency projects to address that. So recently the city leveraged one of the local basin study on climate change. We looked at that and said, okay, it actually told you, based on the climate models out there, it told you how many more heat days you will get, how much more the river temperature could go up, and how that could impact the water flow into the falls and reservoirs. So we are regionally looking at the impacts on our reservoir system, how it impacts the river eco-health, the ecosystem, because the fish population gets impacted, that impacts our ecosystem. So we are looking at all of those aspects of our region as well. A couple of projects that we have put in place is there is a proposal to look at water bank. Can we bank our groundwater to protect the region against these drought periods that come up? How can we do that? There is something called a River Arc project that the region is looking at. looking at some low impact diversion from the Sacramento River. So
Yeah.
regionally, I think we can be proud that the city of Sacramento is partnering on some of these initiatives. And the final one is conjunctive use, also shifting our operations as needed. That is something the city is doing right now. We shifted some of our operations from Lower American River, and we are using more of our groundwater so that there's more water left in the Lower American River to support its ecosystem and its health. So some of these measures, I think, are also important in making sure that we have the water 15 to 100 years later on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not also just a Sacramento responsibility, but it's definitely a regional responsibility because we all share the water. And so, Roshni, thank you so much for that. Trustee Ray, because you serve on the American River Flood Control Board, definitely want you to be able to share, like, where do you see the future of water? And yeah, as especially someone who is an elected official who oversee water. Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I also think something we don't think, like, I'm really appreciating that there's so much infrastructure talk. Obviously,
Yes.
So we have the flood control board. We specifically manage the infrastructure to keep, when we have excess water from, invading our homes. I live very close to the river. I appreciate the levees every day, but I think if you aren't thinking about it, a large chunk of the city is protected by the levees, but if you live, a mile or two, a mile from them or even half a mile from them, you might not think about that. You might not be thinking about that. And having extreme droughts and also extreme rainfalls that we have with climate change, because it's not just about droughts, it's also that we have a ton more water sometimes falling at one point, and we're not, because it's often not snow now, we're not being able to store it in long periods. And I think that that's something we need to think about. It also impacts infrastructure. When you have ground swelling because it gets really wet a bunch and then it dries out, that can impact, for specifically flood management, that can impact how levees are. They're requiring a lot more maintenance and a lot more funding for that, which often comes from the state and the people who just live in the area. But I think it's really great that we are starting to, as a city and a region, really look at making sure our infrastructure is sound and can withstand those major changes we have due to our climate change. And I think that's something that we all should be considering is why is the infrastructure needing to be repaired and why is it needing to be changed? A lot of it is very old and it hasn't been designed with in mind climate change and hasn't had the chance to really have a lot of the really great scientific breakthroughs we've had when it comes to infrastructure. And so I think it's really great that we as a city and a region are starting to do those repairs, but I think everyone keeping in mind that's why those are needing to happen, I think is really important. And what we can do for our future and for future generations is have better infrastructure and have that infrastructure better prepared for climate change.
Thanks so much. I know we are about to end right now because folks are about to enter dinner, but this started off with how does the water get to my faucet to why it's so important for us to take it back to basic and really think about infrastructure, right? And making sure that our system, our pipes are up to date so that we can actually get the water to our families and our neighborhoods. And so I really appreciate today's conversation. Roshni, Bill, Trustee Ray, thank you so much for all the tips and strategies of ways that we all could be doing our part in terms of conserving water, being a good steward of water as well. And again, to everyone who's watching, I'm just so proud and honored to be serving on the city's ad hoc water committee with Councilmember Jeff Harris and Councilwoman Katie Valenzuela. We are on the water committee, so anything water related to the city, those are the folks you definitely want to contact. And I'm really proud to be part of that committee because water is something that is a human rights issue, right? It's so basic. Sometimes it's things that we don't think about. Like Bill had mentioned earlier, sometimes water is something that we take for granted, but it is something that's so critical to our infrastructure, to our livelihoods. And it's also summer, it's July. And I was like, what topic are we going to talk about this month? And I just thought, it'd be really great if we talked about how our water flows. How do we get our water? Because I think a lot of folks don't know, right? And even knowing that, like 20% of it comes from the ground, right? 80% is from the rivers. And I think even knowing that is like awesome. And now I know that if you have lots of dishes, use the dishwasher. If you don't have too many dishes, you want to conserve water, just, wash a few of your dishes. So that's really good to know too. So with that, again, I just want to thank you, Trustee Ray, Roshni, and Bill. Thank you so much. just for your leadership and all the work that you've done around water. I really appreciate it. We're getting some shout out from folks as well that it's been a really great discussion. I know it got a little wonky, and I was doing my very best to make sure that, we really broke it back down to basic. How do we get our water in Sacramento? And I hope that all of you have enjoyed that. Just a quick reminder, right? Be smart about water usage. We'll make sure to put down the link of ways that you can actually access rebates, for toilets, for water meters, all of that. The city has really awesome programs. Want to make sure that all of you who are tuning in today actually access those programs. If you have any questions at all, I also want y'all to know you can always just call Team Heart and Hustle as well. You can email us at district8@cityofsacramento.org, or you can just call us by phone, old school, 808-7008. Zip code, of course, is 916-808-7008. Our email again is district8@cityofsacramento.org. Or you can follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. The handle is the same. It's at CMMyVang. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get information about what's happening in our office from the city. And then lastly, I want to put a quick plug. The council will be having conversation about how to spend the American Rescue Plan dollars. And it's so important for me as your councilwoman to hear directly from you. I do have a survey that's out right now. I want to make sure that Team Heart and Hustle also, if you can link our survey as well, that'd be great. Want to hear from you of how we should actually be allocating that money and spending that money as we think about recovery. So make sure that you complete that survey. Want to hear from you. I thought that was the last plug, but I'm going to do one more plug. I also want to say that we are still, doing vaccinations. It's really important to make sure that our community reach immunity. We know that many of the cases, COVID cases that are increasing are among those who are not vaccinated. And so want to make sure that we do everything we can to protect our loved ones, our elders. If you haven't received your vaccine, you can stop by the Bonnie Pinnell Community Center, 2450 Meadowview Road. Every Friday from 9 to 11, swing by, walk up, get your vaccine shot. We're also going to be canvassing. We've been canvassing, coming to you. We're looking at all the census tract in our community that's red, and we got to make sure we turn those to orange and get folks protected. So we'll be out coming to your neighborhoods as well. So those are some of the updates from our office. Lots of stuff coming as well from Team Heart and Hustle, but wanted to make sure that I put those two plugs in. So with that, sending lots of love and healing to all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching this on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, thank you so much. I know it's dinner time, so I'm going to let Trustee Ray, Roshni, and Bill go so they can go get dinner tonight because I'm sure they have a busy day tomorrow again to basically address water again, because every day, you all think about water all the time. So again, I want to say thank you so much just for your leadership, and then we'll sign off. And I think that's it. So thank you so much, everyone. And we'll be in touch. Stay in tune for our next live chat next month. Thanks, everyone.